We have finally come to the point where we have to discuss the assassin scorer maybe coming off the bench. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast. Not my words. Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna's producing all of you in the chat. Welcome to the show on this Wednesday, a day off for the boys following a really bad loss to the New York Knicks on Tuesday night. We get prepared for the Milwaukee Bucks. Later start on Thursday night against Giannis and Doc
they're probably going to
Rivers.
get crushed, but at least we'll also lose sleep and have to work later.
Yes.
So there's that.
And the Bucks lost to the Kings last night. So as you said, there's that. We have a lot to get into with, as we have it here from the feed, Tobias Harris. We'll talk about a Joel Embiid update and so much more during this episode. Fellas, how are we feeling today after, less than 24 hours?
Well, I'm fantastic, Devon.
Fantastic?
Watch the same damn game you did. You know exactly how I am.
I was going to say, I think I somehow feel even worse because I did watch a few stretches from yesterday to prepare for.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a deeply ill person mentally, so I did look back at that game, and it's part of the reason that we discussed this being the main topic of the show today. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how at this point, with the way Tobias is playing and needing to frankly do just about anything you can to switch things up, give this team a jolt, look at different combinations. Like Nick Nurse has said many times over, right? That right now is about evaluating things, about what works, what doesn't work, what can you save potentially for the playoffs? Although, I'm not
entirely sure.
We're quickly approaching the point where I'm not taking a playoff appearance for granted. Play in, yes. Playoffs, that's another story. But we keep hearing this message from Nick, and it's the correct one, that they need to look at everything possible, right? Well, why wouldn't you look at this at this point? If for nothing else, like, look, on merit, on the totality of these guys' careers, Tobias is not a bench player on this roster, right? But on merit for what is happening right now and what might need to be done to make him understand, like, dude, you're in a contract year in the final couple months of the season, but that doesn't matter to us. What matters is going out there, trying to win games, playing with fire on defense, doing what you're supposed to do on offense, which is taking open shots, making quick decisions, the things that we know Tobias does not like to do or does not want to do half the time. But I think at a certain point, it's less about do they have somebody better? And it's more about what can you do to shake things up? Because status quo is simply not going to get it done. That's for him. That's for this team. And the worst thing that happens is it lights a fire under Tobias and he plays better and you go right back to him in the starting lineup, right? Like we've seen a couple of different guys respond to benchings. Paul Reed, since he's moved to the bench, has played with more energy. Buddy Hield admittedly did not play well last night, but Buddy Hield got moved to the bench on Sunday, was one of their better performers, at least from an offensive standpoint, immediately. And so I don't know why he's being afforded this luxury when he's been worse than most of their rotation players.
So here's my only counter, and this is just playing devil's advocate. I want to be clear. If you are going to stay in the top 8 or so, you're going to need Tobias Harris to play well. We all agree. Like, you can't just relegate him, tell him, to go sit and collect his check. You need him to contribute on the basketball floor. My only guess is if Nick Nurse is hesitant to bench him, it's because he doesn't believe he will react well to that. Everyone reacts to things differently. Paul Reed might react one way. Tobias Harris, who's been a career starter, might react a different way. There's a possibility that maybe Nick Nurse feels if I bench Tobias, there's a low chance we're going to get good Tobias at any point. And look, nobody right now is expecting good Tobias to be here on a regular basis. We all make jokes that he will score 30 against Charlotte and then not show up against the Knicks. That's a joke, and there's some truth to that. But if you're going to maintain a top 8 seed, you need to beat the Charlottes of the world too. And having a quote-unquote locked-in Tobias for those games has some value just for trying to hang on to that 8th seed or top 8 seed.
The last 3 games that they've played, he is 0 for 11 from behind the 3-point line.
Oh, buddy, he stinks right now.
And for the month, he's shooting 31% from the 3-point line, 47.6 from the field, and he's averaging 17 points. And, of course, those are inflated a bit just because of the 31 against Charlotte, 28 against Dallas. Not ignoring those because they did happen, and they needed those wins, so you take that. But like we often say, there's one thing to look at stats, and there's another thing to actually watch the game and know those stats happen and how they got to that point. And he has not been good. He had that stretch there where he was pretty good, and against Brooklyn, he had 18 points. They lost by 5. And in that game also, Tyrese Maxey did not play. You needed more from him in that one. So we point that out again, even though he had 18, this is what we talk about of him elevating his play and what he needs to do, responding to the pressure that's in front of them and responding to being to the number one guy with Tyrese Maxey out. He is not, as Kyle said, what has he done to afford this? It's just his career, just being a starter for his entire time here in Philadelphia. The fact that, yes, he is the highest paid player right there on the floor with that money that he is making this season. And that, of course, is something that goes into it. He's a leader in that locker room. He is well respected. But if Nick Nurse is going to say everything that these two guys just talked about, where it comes to the fact that, we have to look at different combinations. Joel Embiid is out. DeAnthony Melton is out. We have to figure out what works for this basketball team to get wins. This is not helping them win. And when we, again, talk about that Washington game that I continue to go back to where they went on the road and they beat Washington, sure, it's the Washington Wizards fighting for the worst record in the NBA. But he was playing horribly in that game. And a rookie was outplaying him, and the head coach called the number of the rookie and sat down the veteran because he was not helping them whatsoever in winning that basketball game. We saw the same thing last night. And while it doesn't have to be Ricky Council or Kenyon Martin Jr., I don't know who it is, but he is the coach and he has to figure that out. And for right now, he has figured out that 26-plus minutes is still good enough for Tobias Harris. He has to figure out if things go haywire, which we think they will against Milwaukee on Thursday night, at what point, if he is running up and down the floor and not looking really lethargic and in his own head, as Derek likes to say quite often, when you see the problems that Tobias Harris is going through in any given game, at what point does Nick Nurse decide, all right, I have to take him out and put someone else in? I don't know that it's Buddy Hield or KJ Martin or Ricky Council. I don't know who it is. We talk about it. We give our opinion. Maybe I will have one by the end of the show in terms of who it might be. But that's Nick Nurse's job, to feel it out, see that this player is not giving me anything, despite if he's not talking about the money, and neither are we, we're just simply pointing out production. 26 minutes and 2 points does not guarantee you another 26 minutes in a game that you need to find a way to be in the fourth quarter to try to win that game against a very good Milwaukee team in the Eastern Conference. So if Nick Nurse is going to preach it, he has to follow through and make sure that not only is he preaching it with his words, that he preaches it also with the actions of benching that player. In this case, we're talking about Tobias Harris.
And one of the things that's hard for me to get past with all this too, when Tobias missed a brief stretch after they traded for Buddy Hield, Buddy shot the lights out, and that was a big, you can't count on that all the time, right? But what was more meaningful to me during that time period is that the offense flowed, the ball moved, quick decisions were made. They played offense the way it is supposed to be played. And the second that Tobias Harris comes back to the lineup, it goes into a lot of my turn, your turn. Hey, I'm giving you the ball with 12 on the clock, figure something out, and stagnation. And it's not to say it's all his fault, right? Like, there are plays where he ends up being the guy who gets blamed, where there's no cutting, there's no movement, there's nothing happening around him. And that's as much of a fault of his teammates as it is his. But I don't know how you look at games they played without him and stretches they play without him and runs they go on without him and then say, okay, well, we got to find a way to get that guy on the floor. We got to find a way to put him in the starting lineup, in the closing lineup. Like, if he earns it on merit, if he's playing well in a particular game, sure. But, I've seen a sentiment from fans, both in the chat here, in our Discord, things like that, where they're like, well, this has to be coming from the front office. Like, Daryl Morey's got to be forcing Nick Nurse to do that. I 100% disagree. What is Daryl Morey's incentive to continue starting, closing, and playing 30-plus minutes a player that they don't need to have an attachment to beyond the season? If anything, you could argue the opposite. Now that they've carried him through the deadline, there is no incentive for the Sixers to try to play Tobias to turn him into a better trade chip or whatever the argument might have been going into the deadline. Right now, their only concern, and I mean their only concern, is putting the best possible team on the floor. Period. Until Joel Embiid gets back. If that includes Tobias, great. But it's very clear to me, and I think to everybody watching the team right now, that best version of the team has not included him that often lately. That doesn't mean that other guys are playing well. Even guys that you might boost into his starting spot if you were to take him out, right? Like Nick Batum has floundered without Joel Embiid, hasn't been healthy, and since he's returned, has not shot the ball well, has not moved as well as he was moving earlier in the season. That complicates matters for sure. Buddy is trending down, and even if you were to say put Buddy in and try to spread it out and shoot like crazy, you're going to take a defensive hit by playing that type of him, Lowry, Maxey trifecta in the starting lineup. There are problems with every potential air quotes solution that they might offer, but I think you got to try. You just have to try something different. You can't watch this guy do the same thing and get worse and worse and worse seemingly as the season goes on and shrug your shoulders and say, well, I just don't know how to fix it. I don't buy that whatsoever.
So I'm not too concerned about the starting bit because we can go over the options. None of them are even close to perfect. What are you going to do? Start like Maxey, Buddy, Lowry, and Oubre? That would be the smallest, worst defensive, worst rebounding forever. That being said, they do have like a plus 123 net rating so far in 14 possessions. Might not be meaningful, but hey, if it's enough to make the case, go for it. What I want is him to not play, because you brought up he got his 26 minutes last night, which was the fourth highest on the team. Like everyone's minutes were depressed because it was a blowout. He was playing 38 per night in like the 4 or 5 games leading up to that. Now, granted, 2 of them were good games against Dallas and whatnot, sure. But he should not be penciled in for 35 to 40 every night. That's what I have a big exception with. If you want to keep him starting because you think that is the best way to keep him engaged and have him available so he can pick apart Charlotte and help you get wins here and there, sure. Okay, fine. But if he doesn't have it, like he clearly didn't last night, be quick to react. Be adjustable, flexible, agile. We haven't really seen that. That's my biggest gripe more than the starting, not starting. I think a lot of times when a player is struggling and frustrating you, the instinct is just bench him, bench him, bench him. There's a lot of politics that goes into that. Not politics between like coaching staff and front office, because you brought it up. There's no logical reasoning that Daryl Morey would want this. It is politics in terms of managing egos and expectations. But he doesn't. Like, if he doesn't have it one night, play him 25 minutes. See how he reacts.
The bench him is the sentiment, yes, for a lot of players, but then that's not necessarily the case though when it comes to one of your starters who's been one of your starters for 4.5 years, and you just outright start to have that discussion of benching him. Yeah, people like Phil in the chat, we'll read that a little bit later because we can discuss that a little bit more, but he's talking about when he reached out to us early in the season when I got back with these guys and talked about bringing him off the bench, and we flat out said no, that wasn't the time. Right now is the time, and you don't really look at guys who play that number of minutes as a starter of your 5 best maybe to start the game and say bench him. This is a different exception now because of where he is. And quite frankly, when we speak about Tyrese Maxey trying to be the best player, set things up early to get them going before he gets himself going, I think back to those first 2 3-pointers that he found Tobias Harris very early. And I would much prefer, even on a miss from Buddy Hield, I would feel much better with that ball swinging to as Tyrese Maxey penetrates and gets to the paint, finds a gap there. They collapse on him. He finds Buddy Hield. I know that might look bad and really small, but I would much rather that be Buddy Hield getting that early look. And we talked about it anyway when Joel Embiid went down and DeAnthony Melton followed after his 3-game return that, hey, maybe they're not going to have to try to outscore teams. Well, maybe that is the lineup. Maybe that is where they have to start because they're not going to stop anybody, but they need to score the basketball, and that's just really simple. So there is no clear answer here. We don't know. We have no idea. But that guy cannot go out there and continue to do what he's doing to start these games off and just be out there. He's just out there, and that's the big problem. He's just out there. If he gets checked in and he's playing 30 minutes by coming off the bench and he's still just out there, take him out again because you can't do it. I looked at the stats for that Washington game that we bring up. He played 33 minutes. Nurse was trying to, again, give him the opportunity to get out of whatever funk that he was in that game. He played 33 minutes in that particular game, and in that win where they 119-113, he was 4 for 14, 0 for 2, had 7 boards, 3 assists in that one. He had 3 steals, 1 block. Yes, we'll give him that. But he had 11 points in 33 minutes. But as we watched it, we knew that those 11 were hollow in a sense as we watched that game. This cannot continue if they're trying with 17 games remaining to try to keep their heads above water in this playoff picture.
Well, and so to sort of address both the points you guys just made, Nurse has tried over and over and over again to use what I think is the kid gloves approach. Like, okay, it's all right, Tobias. Like, and this is not really criticizing Nurse, right? Like, he's trying to figure out exactly what to do with this guy, where he's allowed him to play through so many tough stretches. And last night, I think we all pretty much agreed, the more Tobias played, the worse he made it for his team. And I would love for it to sink in for Tobias that, hey, you're not playing well. You're going to play a few less minutes tonight. I don't think that's going to work. The whole reason you would consider benching someone is the reason why it's a political decision to do things like this. Starting lineup, whether we think it really matters or not, is a giant ego thing for these guys. It is something that every single one of these guys care about. If you go back to not completely unrelated, but semi-related thing, the Pat Bev, JJ Redick, Doc Rivers argument and that took place in the public lately. The whole discourse that came out of that was, well, Doc's the only guy who would start you. He's the reason why you had this type of success. Guys are all around the league, current, former, future players, care about starting. And the biggest reason to me to consider bringing him off the bench is he needs a huge fucking kick in the ass to understand you are approaching a summer in which this is probably your last real chance to get paid, and we do not give a fuck. You need to perform for this team or you will not be afforded anything the rest of the year. I am done with okay, well, tonight he might play 25 minutes. Even last night, as he is actively harming the team, he is on the floor to open the fourth quarter and they're like, last chance, last ditch, got to get something out of this game effort. Like, drastic measures need to be taken here. We're seeing the same movie play out repeatedly. I can't do okay, he's played 25 shitty minutes and now he's done. We need to get there quicker than that. Send the message, see how he responds, and if he doesn't get any better, he was stinking it up in the first place.
See, but I think if he has a game where he only plays like 15, 20 minutes, I think that exact same message is sent. And also, I think the bigger issue I have with that is, or not bigger issue, bigger concern maybe, I don't think necessarily kicking the ass is what he needs. I don't think it's dogging. I think he is in a crisis of confidence, and I don't know how the best way. It's a little bit like Ben Simmons, where it's like, all right, Doc Rivers coddled him and told everyone it was fine, and then in 1 minute he didn't. He lost him completely. Would it have turned out better if he gave him tough love earlier? I truthfully don't know the answer to that. These are when you start getting into crisis of confidence territory, I don't know the best way to go about getting that player back. And I think that's what we're talking about here more than he needs someone to light a fire under his ass because he doesn't care. Because I think Tobias Harris does actually care. I just don't think he knows how to get out of whatever headspace he's in right now.
We always talk about players being handled differently and stars being handled differently. He's one of the top players on this basketball team. He has been afforded that by Nick Nurse by handling him differently because Buddy Hield's been here for, 10 games? He got benched. Maybe Buddy again can handle it. Paul Reed can handle it. Tobias Harris in this case, we don't know that. But 17 games, they don't have time to be rubbing his back and sitting there circling and rubbing his back and make sure he's feeling okay.
Phil, would you quit crying in the chat saying we tore Simmons apart and Tobias had a pass for 5 years?
No,
Derek has gone through our show, and we've literally had like 5 different shows where a version of Tobias sabotaged the Sixers the headline.
It is getting tough to write unique headlines to tell the same story.
I can recall something I wrote after the Sixers lost in the bubble. Al Horford's on the team. Josh Richardson's on the team. Ben Simmons was on the team but hurt, didn't play. I wrote that Tobias Harris was a mid-level guy masquerading as a max-level player. You can go back and find the fucking story from 2020. 4 years ago, I wrote about this nonsense. So don't bark up this tree with me.
Yeah.
I promise you, all 3 of us collectively have criticized Tobias plenty over the years. And saying we tore Simmons up, he deserved to be torn up. What the fuck has he done since he left? He's been even worse. Like, oh, it's my fault that Ben Simmons can't get his shit together. The fuck out of here, dude.
No, anyone who has read Kyle and I for a long time know that we've always thought Tobias was overrated, the trade was bad, the contract a disaster. This has been consistent from the moment he signed it, so it is not revisionist at all.
Yeah, Phil, don't do that.
What are we talking about, man?
Well, what are we talking about? We're talking about Manscaped. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Manscaped.
Talking about Devon's Irish Garden.
Hey, man, it's 70 degrees outside. You know, you want to make sure. I have sweats on today. I'm feeling good, feeling comfortable. You know why? Because I, made good use of the product that they sent. Manscaped. Yes, the episode today is brought to you by the St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers, by our good people from Manscaped. This year, don't just chase those rainbows as you're going outside today, enjoying the beautiful weather. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun before you step out that door with the leaders and below the kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Who wants to deal with all of that forest that you have going on? It's too hot for all of that. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code PHLY for $20 off, plus that free shipping. And ever since I've used Manscaped, I can proudly say that I found my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm saying, I'm getting into the good feel of, all right, what do I need to do here? I need to be careful here. I am careful. I have Manscaped. I'm all good. I'm not worried about anything because of how good this Manscaped product is. You can meet your new lucky charm for St. Patrick's Day with that Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra that we all have. I don't know what they've done with it, but I know I'm telling you what I've done with it. The trimmer comes with 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heels. So if you're worried, don't be. Skin safe, right? Blade heads, they're fine. One for a classic trim and one for a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. Whether you want to go against the grain or not against the grain. You're all good, equipped with dual LED spotlights so you can see every area, and make sure you're good. Navigate your Shamrock patch in peace. No worries. You're not going to make a mess. Fear not. This wonder is waterproof, shaved by the Misty Moors. They love when I say the Misty Moors. Under a waterfall, even during a rain dance. Trimming the hedges in your Irish garden isn't just for below the belt. Want to have a clean shave and complete your look with Manscaped's signature beard hedger pro kit and handyman electric face shaver. Whether you're sculpting your beard or cleaning up your neckline, these are always the right tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code PHLY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with code PHLY at manscaped.com. This St. Patrick's Day, make sure your little hairy leprechaun or big is luckier than ever with Manscaped.
I'm always fine on that ad read until I look over and Kyle's smiling.
Biggie says every Tobias game is like snagging your nuts while manscaping. So
Go get Manscaped, Big. Stewart says,
Listen,
Manscaped selling me on the product. Go get it. Manscaped.com.
Listen, everybody, when you have to sit here and listen to Devon talking about trimming his Irish garden and his shamrocks and whatever else.
Against the grain not?
It can be easy to lose your cool and feel like you want to walk off the set, but there is a better way. There is a chiller way. When I walk out of here, I'm going to open our refrigerator. I'm going to choose chill by reaching for an ice cold Coors Light, because with Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer. The mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans as soon as they hit that perfect temperature. These guys don't know it yet, but I'm potentially going to go on a nice little, spring break before the end of the season. Take after Devon, take a vacation when we're supposed to be doing some work.
He doesn't take a vacation. He takes an entire season off.
And have you witnessed the last month?
When I'm on my little vacation with my wife, enjoying some breeze, some ocean breeze, some sunshine, I'm going to know when I come out of the ocean that my beer is cold, because that blue Coors Light can and bottle will be there waiting for me, the Blue Mountains, I should say. And I know that Coors Light will be cold layered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. It is mountain cold refreshment. And no matter how far I get from the people in Colorado that can't stand my guts, I'll be able to say, look, I've got a beautiful Coors Light. That's one thing that we can share in common, because when you choose to rise above it all and choose chill, you should choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Money Mar, real fast. Money Mar says, never go against the grain in the nether regions, Devon. LOL.
Don't go against the grain in general, but
hey,
definitely not.
You never know what other people
definitely
like to do.
Definitely not in the Irish garden.
As the quote says, the saying says from our good people at Manscaped, watch the balls.
One more from Phil W. He says he's more upset that we wanted Oubre to take a backseat rather than watch Tobias dribble for 24 seconds.
All right, settle down,
Let's
Phil.
be clear for one thing here. Kelly Oubre has not been good. He's had a good stretch here of like 4 or 5 games. But since Joe went out, Kelly Oubre is shooting 40% from the field, 26% from 3, and is having 1.5 assists on 15 field goal attempts per game. 1.5 assists with 15 field goal attempts is almost impossible to do. This is a conversation not because Kelly Oubre is underrated or that we were wrong on him. This is a conversation because Tobias Harris has freaking cratered, and you don't have a good option outside of that. That's what this is about.
Also, I just went and double-checked. August 20th, 2020, this sentence was written by me in public for your consumption. Trivia question. This is the first sentence, second sentence in an article. Which of the following options is the reason the Sixers are down 2-0 with their backs against the wall and the season on the line? A, Tobias Harris is a mid-level exception player masquerading as a $180 million star wing. B, Al Horford is being paid over $100 million to play out of position and complicate life even further for the star player who plays the same position as he does. So when most of you motherfuckers were trying to trade Joel and say, build the team around Ben, which I have not forgotten because of how many I've heard it from over the years. And when you're accusing me of giving Tobias Harris a pass, it literally never happened. Not once, not a single season. I praise Tobias when he plays well because that is the job, is to be fair, is to say, this guy played well. He gets recognition for it. And now when Tobias is in the midst of perhaps his worst stretch since he joined the Sixers, I am sitting here telling you he should probably be, or I think he should be benched to send a message to him, to the rest of the team, and to probably Joel Embiid sitting at home watching this garbage and thinking, this is the guy who is one of the 3 most important players on a team that I'm supposed to drag to a conference finals or finals appearance. So don't ever sit here and try to tell me, or any of these guys for that matter, but definitely not me, who I'm a much meaner person than either one of these two, that I've never come for Tobias Harris while he's been here.
Phil, you've watched, you've read their stuff, you've listened to my shows over the past, we had these conversations. You know good and damn well that none of us have sat there and said this about Tobias Harris. We've openly, our job is open, it's public. As Kyle just read his story that many read, and Derek's stories are there. And my shows were there where we would talk about this guy needing to be on the bench or his minutes cut or having a better approach to the game or whatever it is. Is it too late? The money, all of the things have been part of the conversation, the Tobias Harris experience for 5 years. Every angle has been discussed when it comes to Tobias Harris. And I would say the majority has been, this guy sucks, this guy stinks. And then not just, I don't mean that from us, I mean from the fan base who has talked about this. So it's not as if we haven't discussed this and have conversation. You can stumble upon this conversation by accident over the last 5 years when it comes to Tobias Harris. So Phil, don't do this, man, because we've all discussed how bad his play has been and how, hell, we go back to we talked about Game 6 last night. Game 6 was a huge topic last year in the playoffs where he had 3 points in a Game 6 in an elimination game where there were not a lot of points scored in that game. It wasn't until the last 5 minutes of Boston's best player, Jason Tatum, taking over where there was still opportunity for him. And after that game concluded, we talked about how James Harden, yes, but Tobias Harris stunk in Game 6. So it's not anything that we haven't been talking about for the time that number 12 has clocked in, and we haven't discussed the fact that that guy needed to be off the floor. DeAnthony Melton missed shots in that game. James Harden missed shots in that game. And Tobias Harris had 3 points. 3 points in Game 6, and that has been discussed plenty, just like we did last night after his 2-point showing against the Knicks.
I love how we're going to do an entire segment
on Phil. Phil, also, just for the record, fair, Phil is in the chat saying that it's a different subject as we cater too much around Joel Embiid. When they lost Game 7, I called the immediate story. Again, the immediate tweet. You can look this up. Go ahead and search it. I called it a career-defining choke job for Joel Embiid and James Harden. There's literally no criticism that could be made of any of these players that you think you can make that I have not made publicly, that is written in the Internet Archive. I promise you will find it. I promise you.
I think Phil's probably just saying you as in like the general media, not us specifically.
He directs it at, hey, Kyle, hey, Derek, hey, Devon, why don't you talk about this? I do all the time.
We're all, this is going to be like the Joker moment for the show. Like we're all losing our collective minds right now. Thank you, Tobias.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk about Joel's injury.
Let's get to him. Let's get
to enough of the addressing this nonsense.
All right. Last night during the broadcast that the game was played on, they discussed, was it Greenberg? You said it was it Greenberg that was on the sideline?
I believe it was Greenberg.
Jared
Greenberg on the sideline talked about a little bit of an update. Ramona Shelburne had an update on the NBA Today show on ESPN. And basically it looks like right now that the word that they are getting is he's not close to returning yet. He's able to get out there on the floor and do some basketball-related activities, but not an official update from the team to let us know exactly where he is in his recovery from the meniscus surgery. And Derek, what are your thoughts on that from what we heard last night and, of course, from Ramona Shelburne?
I think it is ridiculous that the Sixers haven't given an update yet. And look, we on this show last week came out, I think it was like 4 weeks and a day, and we said, look, if it's not, when they said approximately 4 weeks, you will get an update. 4 weeks in a day is not reason to flip out. That being said, if you set an expectation that you will get an update in 4 weeks, you have to give an update in 4 weeks. And the fact that we are now over 5 weeks from there and they still haven't done that, it is, look, I'm not going to say it's doom and gloom that they haven't, but there's only one way to read that, and it's not necessarily an optimistic way. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's doom and gloom. It just means it's not optimistic. But you've got to, if you want to calm people down, you've got to give an update. If you're going to set an expectation, hedging it with approximately 4 weeks only gives you so much latitude before people hold you accountable for it. It is, and the update was that, what did Ramona say? They're hoping to get him back with like 3 or 4 games left in the regular season.
Yeah, like final week or two of the season.
I think probably the most charitable way to read this is that he is now back to doing some work, that timeline is probably a week or 2 later than they were expecting, and we haven't gotten an update following that. Okay, if that's the reality of it, give us an update. This is PR 101. You can't just say we're going to give you an update then not give you an update. You only read that in one way.
Yeah, look, like they made their bed. They have to sleep in it. Whatever the reason is, if it's Joel, because look, we can be honest about Joel's been guarded about this whole thing. The whole reason that it was the cloak and dagger about how to characterize what happened, where it was a procedure versus surgery, and they wouldn't define what it was when we're getting very hyper-specific DeAnthony Melton updates. Some of that is because Joel wants to control the message, and that's fine. But you can't agree that clearly there was agreement, hey, we're updating 4 weeks. Timeline will be updated, whatever it is, whatever the recovery is. And I'm glad we got to talk to Joel in the interim to hear from him himself. But to Derek's point, there is just no way that the guy who was the MVP favorite when he went down is out for 4 weeks. We're at 5 weeks exactly now. The 5-week marker is today, and you don't give anything. Like, I've been sitting here trying to be the calm one and saying, look, no alarms, no panicking. But the only reason there are no positive reasons to drag it out. If everything is going smoothly, you just say that and say, we'll have an update for you in a couple more weeks. Like Joel Embiid continues to rehab from his procedure on his meniscus. We'll update you in the next 1 to 2 weeks, whatever you want to do. It's not, you don't have to give like a hyper-specific timeline. You do have to say something. You have to give the people something instead of drip feeding through Ramona and Woj and Greenberg and whoever else gets the information. Like, it's not fair to fans who, like, there are fans who will make purchases on tickets and things based on the idea that, okay, I count at today's February 6th, he gets the surgery. Joel will be back by then, and I'm going to get to see Joel and Tyrese. Like, it's bullshit on that front. It's bullshit for how they're treating reporters who are trying to cover the story. It's just like, it's disingenuous at this point, a week removed from when we probably should have gotten an update, to pretend like nothing is going on here. Like, it's just unacceptable.
And look, if what Ramona says is true, and he comes back, let's say April 7th, something in that range, that will be 8 weeks. We all sort of sat here and said, all right, a reasonable timeline for him to return to play is 6 to 8 weeks. That is towards the, outside edge of that window. So like I said, Ramona's update to me wasn't catastrophic. It's the fact that is the only update that we've gotten. When seemingly there has been at least, if there is a window, like I said, 6 to 8 weeks, we are now pushed towards the outside edge of that window. You promise us an update, or at least that he would be reevaluated in 4 weeks. Give the fans an update. Let them know where he is. This was a milestone that he has passed, and you have been silent through. People are going to freak out. And quite frankly, like, they should. Not freak out, but they should be upset about it.
Well, I mean, because it is frustrating, because as we are sitting here and we're looking at the 6 to 8 weeks, and we're at 5 right now, and just wondering, yes, it was cool to see Joel Embiid talk to the media and in the midst of it all and give a bit of an update himself and stand there in front of everybody and face the questions. But yeah, you should get an update. And look, I think it was Jay who put it in the chat, Drew Hanlon, his personal trainer, tweeted out earlier today, the wheel's up to Philly. That could be one of two things. It could be Embiid, and it could be Tyrese Maxey, since he works with both of those two. And Maxey coming off of his few games off because of the concussion. Maybe he didn't feel like he was right to get things going. And Joel Embiid being here, of course, while they're on the road. Yes, he can work Joel Embiid out and get some things going there, but also when the Sixers do return from their Thursday game, he could still be here for when Tyrese Maxey comes back. So could be a lot of things with Drew Hanlon. I would imagine if he's saying was up to Philly, he's working with both, but certainly for Joel Embiid. But nobody really cares about that unless the team hands out some information. No one wants to hear, with all due respect, from the people who have shared some of the news that they have gotten. They want to hear from the team and being able to hear from these guys as they reported that Joel Embiid is at this spot week 5, and there's a pretty good chance that he can start doing this on the floor, lifting his weight, and who knows, maybe he'll be back by the end of this month or the start of April. So it is very frustrating at this point to not have that. It is, but hey, that's what they do, and that's where it goes. Joel definitely cares about how that stuff is leaked out. All right, well, yeah, hey.
Feels like this is a low point of the season. Like we've almost hit the floor. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
You know who's an expert in flooring?
Yeah.
If you're like me, you've probably got a long list of spring to-do list. If one of those is flooring, Empire Today has you covered. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today keeps shopping for floor simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And with Empire Today, you have a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. Just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating. You might talk to someone today who was working in plumbing yesterday. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. They also service their own warranties. So with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use a promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
Taking the floor tomorrow in Milwaukee is your Philadelphia basketball team. And if you do live in that area, in the Wisconsin area, Milwaukee, wherever you are in that part, and you say, you know what, this is the only chance I get to see this squad because maybe they're not going to be in the playoffs in the second round because of how things look right now, well, I have the place for you to acquire those tickets at a good price and a lot of cool features to go with it on your app, and that is with Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events like a basketball game shouldn't be stressful at all. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. We'll be at some theater performance at some point, maybe in the summer as a group.
The sad saga of Tobias Harris.
At the end of the season, yeah, that'd be a good one. A one-man play. You know, I watched that play last night a couple of times. That was like
the back down on Dante. It was Dante, right? It wasn't
Dante.
Even really a good defender. Yeah, it's not like it was OG.
Yeah, and he threw it away. All right, with killer deals on the last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you will have while watching your team and then seeing the head coach bench number 12. Maybe that'll happen, and you can see the images of your views where you can find out where that guy will be. You can look at on the bench and be like, oh, there he is, because he's not in the game doing anything. Flash deals and on last-minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection as well. Forget planning months in advance. This is a spur-of-the-moment purchase for you in Milwaukee. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Baseball season's about to get underway, so the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section in South Philadelphia at the ballpark and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We're getting a lot of comments, questions, etc. lately where people are dubious of Joel coming back at all. I want to just make the simple observation that Joel didn't opt to get surgery so that he could never return this year, right? Like the whole reason you would get surgery rather than going through another period of rest, rehab, and then see what happens is because you want to get back on the floor this year, whenever that can be, because the risk with the rest and rehab route would be you miss the 6 weeks or whatever it is. You come back and the hangnail equivalent in the meniscus is still so painful that you then have to get surgery after that. So I want you guys to think about that for 2 seconds before claiming like, oh yeah, he's not coming back. Like maybe he just won't be able to come back, but
Yeah.
I don't see a world where he's ready to go and Joel's like, you know what?
I think
no, thank you.
I think you're right on the money with that one, Kyle. Look, and Joel has spoken about this. The reconstruction of the meniscus wasn't an option. Kyle's wrote about that at allphly.com beforehand, that this is unlikely to be available in this kind of an injury. Joel basically confirmed that when he did speak a couple of weeks ago. But the other option would be rest and recovery, see if that fixes it. And then you don't have to get surgery. The risk, like Kyle just laid out, is that you waste those 6 weeks. Well, if he's not planning on coming back, then there's no real cost to wasting those 6 weeks. You could get the surgery in the summer. He would still be fine by the time the regular season came around, probably still be fine by the time the Olympics came around. He did that procedure, so he had a chance to play for the playoffs. That is the goal. That is the plan. It might not happen just because these things don't always go as you expect, but it has never been just shut him down. The goal the entire time is to play in the playoffs.
And that's where the other question just goes for a lot of people, which is just, will they be in contention enough for him? Does it make sense for him then to come back if they're too far out of it? But we've discussed that last week when we had our play-in podcast, and maybe you can go check that out if you want to get that conversation that we had there, because the only way for anything to make sense for this basketball team going forward in the postseason is if he is on the floor. Certainly the Olympics are a big thing for him. Of course, he had the opportunity to say that he wanted to join that team, and this was not part of the plan. So we'll see if he's able to come back, whether it's because of the rehab and recovery or just simply because they just got knocked out and they won't even make it into the situation where they are able to play.
It would be great because we do see, start of the season, Joel Embiid's not always at his tip-top shape. You go, oh my God, what happened in the summer? He comes back a month later. He looks like the best player on the planet. It would be great if you had someone like, I don't know, the Washington Wizards of a couple of years ago to play in the first round, so you can get him back into form against a lesser competition. Doing that against Milwaukee or Boston is terrifying, but you can't really control that too much at this point.
They're only 2 games out of the 4th seed.
Yeah, when are they going to win 2 games?
My bad.
You're both correct, I think, there. So no reason to snipe at each other over this, obviously.
No, but the funny part, man.
The Knicks could lose 16 in a row. I'm not sure the Sixers can pass them right now.
The crazy part is I really did watch that play last night a few times because we talked about it on the show. We talked about it.
I thought you were talking about the Tobias Harris one-man play at Walnut Street Theater.
Oh, yeah, that one too. Yeah, I did see the preview. It was 10 seconds long. It was right there in the middle of the floor where the ball, okay, cool. And then I had to go watch some episodes of Martin so I could laugh and just get away from it because it was all bad. All right, let's get to a couple of super chats that we do have in here. Let's start with Bill, and Bill's super chat saying, Nurse before the game also said he hasn't seen Joel in a few days. Well, they've been on the road.
Is this going to turn into a Kate Middleton situation where there's like somebody photoshops Joel into a team photo at the practice facility and then it's discovered that they didn't clear the EXIF data, and all of a sudden it's like, where is the 7-foot guy from Cameroon? And nobody knows. I'm just messing around, everybody.
Did you examine that photo?
Are you talking about Kate Middleton? I had to have my wife explain exactly what the hell was going on, and then
I didn't know either.
All I saw was
circles
people,
everywhere.
I saw people memeing off of it, and I was like, what did I miss? Because truth be told, I don't give a flying fuck about the royal family. But I just was like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And so now I kind of understand why that's a phenomenon.
Yeah,
but
I didn't know what. All I saw was red circles all over the place, and I'm like,
right.
I'm not going through this. I'm not doing that. It's just not happening.
I have enough stuff to remember in my life that I don't need to think about that too much.
Joel has been back in Philadelphia while the Sixers have been on the road.
Yeah, that makes logical sense.
Yeah.
We don't live in a logical world anymore. So any kind of conspiracy theory is the default answer nowadays. But yes, that does make logical sense.
Joel's also like the anti-Ben, where Ben, if they were playing 2 games in 3 days in New York, even if he's rehabbing, would have made sure to get his absolute most obnoxious outfits on so he could sit courtside for it. They're honestly one of the funniest moments of this entire season, unintentionally. Ben wore this like neon ridiculous outfit, and it was in Brooklyn where they're all wearing black and white. The coaches are wearing the black pullovers, and they're on that gray court.
This season?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was one of the, somebody quote tweeted it with like, Ben Simmons looks like a created character in a video game where you don't realize that you're going to see that version of the character in cutscenes. And then there's like all these people dressed up in serious outfits, and it's Ben Simmons with like orange sunglasses and a neon green. So Joel is not that guy. He stays at home and he's hanging with his kid and he's rehabbing and trying to get back. None of the theatrics.
No, not at all. All right, let's get to the next one that we have here on the Super Chat. This one's from Liam, our good friend Liam Stevens. How likely at this point that the Sixers re-sign T with a bunch of stars there to not say his name? About. We're talking about the bench player. How likely?
I mean, just from a pure optics standpoint, even if Tobias's market has crashed to the point of being like mid-level, I don't think you can look at this fan base and bring him back at any cost.
Even beyond that, because I don't think Daryl cares about that. What I do think Daryl cares about is not overpaying for role players, keeping the powder dry for difference makers, and I think he cares about three-point bombers who make quick decisions, and Tobias Harris is none of that. There's very few worlds I can see. And look, Daryl, you will find a million examples of Daryl talking up Tobias. That is part of the game that he plays.
That one bat signal tweet is one of the worst tweets that's ever been sent of all time.
I would be very surprised if Daryl Morey values Tobias Harris more than all the other GMs. Very surprised.
No shot. I just really don't. All of that you both said, there's just no shot. And even to the point of the fan base, though, even like you said, he may not care. He cannot sit there in front of a microphone and have a press conference. If he did have a press conference and bring in Tobias Harris back and sit there with a straight face, he could do it. But boy, man, the fan base will go nuts if they see anything. You guys breaking some news that Tobias Harris is re-signed 3 years for $45 million.
If somebody sends me that text,
man,
I'm just going to reply with a fuck off.
No, if we tweet out that they brought him back on a minimum contract, all the replies would be negative. We would have to just close down.
Even though objectively it'd be a great deal.
Sure.
But
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all. Yeah, at all. You can't do that.
You can't do it. But
you can't do that.
Because that's the case, it does, a lot of people were mad at the time. It does kind of make their deadline decision on him to not move him kind of strange. Like, we're all sitting here, we're in agreement that there's no shot he comes back and he's not helping them win games. I guess we were more optimistic about what he would offer post deadline, but
this is the worst we've ever seen Tobias.
This is just
like he was not this player 3 months ago.
He is sucking the joy out of everyone and everything.
What would you have gotten out of him? I mean, gotten for him at the deadline potentially? If we've seen the moves
whatever
that have been
Detroit
made,
wanted to offer.
It was Detroit. I think is the one people bring up.
Yeah,
Bogdanovich and Alec Burks.
Bogdanovich will shoot that damn thing. I'll tell you that. He might not defend anybody. No. Which, speaking of, we were watching the game last night, and Buddy Hield got Bogdanovich on an island, and you will remember that. So I was like, go at that motherfucker.
Yeah, and he got the layup.
He couldn't stay in front of anybody. He went right by him.
He got the layup.
So we'd be complaining about him, but at least he'd be shooting threes. So
not like Tobias when he got Dante DiVincenzo. Now, look, Dante's a more physical defender. He may not be the quick in terms of picking the spots, but his moves, and we've been talking about this, are so predictable.
Yeah.
You knew what he was going to do, and Dante DiVincenzo knew exactly what Tobias was going to do. That's just it. And that's why the possession went the way that it did. We all know he'll take one dribble right hand between his legs to his left hand, and then back to his right hand, stutter step and go, not quick, no quickness, and then try to put his back on the defender, spin, and try to get that burst again. Just doesn't work it doesn't work, man. I mean, we all know it. We've seen it for so many years now where it's not an effective move at this point, man. It's not.
The crumble merchant. strikes again.
I'm not going to laugh. I'm just not going to laugh. All right, let's wrap this one up. Kyle, we did have a lot of people here on this Wednesday afternoon hanging out with us.
By the way, I feel like I should say, I'm going to shout out a lot of people, but shout out to Phil W. because I gave it to him on the stream
part
today.
of the deal, man.
Phil,
When you
just
come in
take this
here-
as a learning experience. If you're going to try to call us out for past takes, at least do the research and be right
They
about
better
it.
be correct takes. So put
And
it that
before
way.
Kyle does that, we want to let everybody know that we will be back post-game tomorrow. There's an 8 o'clock game Thursday night. So don't look for an early post-game. We'll have somewhere around that 10:30, 10:45, 10:40, somewhere around that range.
we will see.
Freaking
it.
late.
We'll
But
be
I was
Too
hungry.
old for that shit.
Hungry?
Yeah.
You get hungry.
Oh, we got to bring some food.
We got to bring
in.
some food.
We
Yeah.
gotta ask Vince to stock us up on snacks, man. Anyway, thank you to Rick Morse, to Money Marr, to Chris B, to RK, Provolone John.
What up, John?
Always love that name. Dave, we got Joaquin from Cherry Hill. St. Christian, we got Fusion, the Bull RJ, Chris B, Liam Stevens, Alex McCoy, Brian Knight,
What up, Brian?
our guy Randy Rubart, who we've met now.
Randy.
Aaron, Coach Lowell Ricketts, Larry Love, Doe Gaming. Let's see, who else we got here? Liam was one of our super chatters. Was it Bill was one of our super chatters
Bill was a
as
super
well?
chat. Yep.
Shout out to both of you.
What up, Al?
Al, the 2-minute warning. As always, I've seen Al.
He was in there early.
I've seen Al the last couple of days really questioning his sanity. Like he's at his wit's end with Tobias and doesn't want to talk about him anymore. I get it, buddy. We got Nick Zerno. We got Alex Stern. Who else we got here? I'm sorry, guys. There's a whole lot of names. Bootzilla.
Boots.
Matthew Brookman. A god named Tay. That's a strong name right there. Then Just Jay. Rick Sachs.
Jay, what's happening?
All right, guys. Stuart Rhodes. There's probably Larry Jackson. I can't get to everybody, but I love y'all. If you haven't already, and all of you who are commenting,
I'm the
have
only
already
one that
done
has hit
so.
the like button.
That's not true. If you could subscribe to the channel,
I hit the like button.
I'm glad you did. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, Devon won't feel like he's the only person who hit the thumbs up button today. And it'll make us all feel
Okay, you
warm
got
and
it.
fuzzy
All right.
inside. Oh, also, by the way, shout out to my guy, Gavin, Marcus Blackstock. Gavin asked me, what did I write about Raul Neto in 1920? That would require a little more research. So I'll revisit that.
He said he would be my tour guide in his hometown. He told me to take a trip, and he would be my tour guide. How old that?
The,
Seems
the
like a
Canary
good guy.
Islands? Was that? Where is he from?
Yes, yeah. He was like, "It's the coolest," and I was like, "I'm there, I'm there."
Anytime, baby.
There
So,
you go. I'm
as
sure.
Devon said, we will be back Thursday evening after the Bucks game. We will see you then. Hopefully, we
Doc
won't
Rivers,
talk too much
baby.
about Tobias.
Doc Rivers, baby.
No, who am I thinking of?
What are you
He's
thinking
from
of?
Brazil. Who am I thinking
Yeah,
of?
he's
That's
from
the Canary
Brazil.
Islands.
I don't know. He's from
It doesn't
Brazil,
matter.
but he told me to come on over here, be my tour guide.
Okay, goodbye.
That'll be fun.
We all silly like the mayor.